Hello, everybody. Good afternoon again. This is Doug Marola at the Freelance Teacher. Welcome to the Freelance Teacher video cast, video log, YouTube channel. And I'm not quite sure what to call this one. I really don't know what to use as the title for this podcast because I'm not quite sure what the main topic is. Let's go with some potential titles. Possibly why not doing enough research hamstrings you intellectually. That's not a great title. Um, Musings on the healthcare situation in the United States. Probably 90% of the United States would intentionally ignore that. So my titles don't work. I'm not quite sure what to do with this one. But let me tell you what spurred the topic is I was speaking with a colleague, a smart one, a guy who teaches math, I think, well, more than reasonably well informed, but obviously reasonably well read and pays attention and is on point and works hard. This is not a bad person by any stretch of the imagination, but we were talking about the health insurance crisis, I guess you could say, that is happening of late. And, he had come to me the other day. We didn't have time to chat, but he had come to me the other day about my opinions as to what's going on in the world of healthcare. And you just had this Republican bit of legislation called Ryan Care, euphemistically, go down. And it was supposedly going to replace Obamacare, euphemistically called Obamacare. It really should be called Pelosi Care, as she was responsible for ramming that horror show through Congress. And I use a word like horror show on purpose because a bit of legislation in the United States that forces someone to do something, that's not freedom. I don't care what it is, right? Force someone to buy an apple for a poor child to eat. The use of force is immoral. Forcing people to do things is not okay. So don't give me this fact that, oh, well, we now have 27,482 people who are now covered by insurance that weren't covered before. Okay, well, if you did it by immoral means, that is that what you want? Is that what the United States is supposed to be about? And are you okay with that? Well, you better be careful, because then when the evil Trump or the evil Bush or the evil Republican X or whomever it is that you don't like says, well, this is a good thing as a result, and now I'm going to force you to do something to make it happen. Well, now what's the problem with that? It was okay to force people to buy something that you thought was beneficial to the population as a whole. It's really not okay. And people don't think this through. But my conversation with my colleague went something like this. He was wondering about the state of healthcare and what I thought about what was going on today. And I said, my answers are always different than everyone else's, I suspect, because teachers and students come to me for my opinion on stuff. And I take that as a feather in my cap, that at least I provide either A, entertainment, which is possible, or B, a unique perspective that they know they're not going to get somewhere else. So I told him, I said, why don't we take a look and see what healthcare was like before Medicare and Medicaid, before 1965, what was going on? And my colleague gave me pretty much historical boilerplate on saying how, well, generally the reforms put in and the government programs put in by FDR and Lyndon Johnson's Great Society really helped people out. And I said, well, you know what, to some degree, it's possible. I don't think so from what I've read, but I'd like to see proof. I'd like to see proof that those programs did what you say. But the other thing I said was, doctors, there's this old American image of the doctor visiting you at the house and coming in doing house calls. And I said, doctors did that because they were competing with other doctors for clients, and they had to provide amazing service to their clientele. And they had to do that, and the price would go down or the services would go up because they were competing against each other. And he said, yeah, well, you know what? But FDR's programs and Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, it's been shown that there were people, particularly in poor parts of the South, Texas, and other areas, who didn't have access to any kind of health care. And then I kind of backed off, because if it's going to be FDR and Lyndon Johnson helped the United States and these programs helped people, that's not good enough, right? You can't just say these were great people and their programs help people. Yeah, okay, maybe did they help 10,000 people and then hurt 30,000? And then here's the thing. It's 2017 and the country is $20 billion in debt by the official estimation. The real number is 10 times as high. And healthcare is in total crisis. People don't know the difference between health insurance and health care. So you have legislation put through that, according to it and its proponents, covers people who weren't covered before. But it doesn't provide for any new doctors. As a matter of fact, go get a doctor's license. Go to med school. How expensive is that? How many years does it take? What kind of licensing requirements are required for you to be a doctor? Look at all of the barriers to entry to being a doctor. It wasn't always that way. And then you could say, well, yeah, well, things were more dangerous. Okay, maybe, but you need to prove that. You can't just say it. Really? Things were more dangerous than, all right, dangerous than what? Than the skyrocketing rates of diabetes and heart attacks and heart disease? More dangerous than that? Well, okay, walk me through that. Show me. But people can't do it. They can sing the praises of FDR and Lyndon Baines Johnson because, well, you know, they're on the left and they're good Democrats and they did good things and they helped people. All right, well, where's the help? Why is there a crisis now? If there was all of this help that went through in those administrations, then why is there a problem now? What happened? Instead, I see a huge amount of government interference, starting with, not exclusive to, but starting with the FDR administration in the 30s, and then expanding exponentially in the 60s. And I'm not one of these partisan hacks who's going to ignore something abysmal like Medicare Part D by the Bush administration, a joke of legislation, ridiculously costly, says, oh, well, we're going to provide free drugs to everyone on Medicare. That's Republican government? That's the Republican Party? No, thank you. I'm not down with that. I can rip that administration apart just as good as I can the others. And anyone who's a free thinker can be critical of various presidential parties. You're allowed. I give you permission. Starting today, you have my expressed permission, written consent if you want it. I allow you to criticize both political parties. How about that? So, to go back to what we were talking about with healthcare, it's a huge mess. And one point that cannot be disputed, and I'll end with this, is there's been a massive growth of government. A huge growth of government spending, barriers to entry, licensing, rules, regulatory agencies over the last 70 years in the United States. I mean, it's unprecedented. No one has ever seen a government this big, this rapacious, this huge a killing machine, this much debt in the history of the world. And it's a huge problem. And if that's the case, and I don't think you can refute that, I don't think anybody can. Government's gotten huge. All right, that's just a statement, and I think it's truthful. Now, let me rephrase. I know it's truthful. Then why are there all the problems out there today? Why is there so much debt? Why is healthcare crisis? Why are the schools crumbling? Why are literacy rates plummeting? Why are heart disease and diabetes rates exploding? Funny how that happens. Funny how if it went the other way, if it were a free market and it went this way, you'd hear the press going crazy and how the free market is terrible and you need more government. Instead, you don't hear any criticism of the very thing that has grown and expanded and increased its scope in the country today. Funny how that is. So I just wanted to share that with you, right? Sing the praises of large government administrations is not analysis, right? And I'm not trying to be overly critical of the guy I work with because he's a good person. But I just want to show you what education does and intelligence. And when you combine education and free thought and asking good questions, you really get different kinds of answers and you really start to expand your scope. And those young people out there, right? My followers and students and the people who listen to what I talk about and follow along nicely, it's really going to be up to you to do that, right? So if you're just beholden to the Democratic Party, whatever that is, or the Republican Party, whatever that is, I think you're going to limit yourself. I think the time has come that you try to just focus on what might be right. And let's try something other than let the government do it. Let's have them take care of it for all of us. Maybe that's not the right approach. That alone, I think, will get you started on a journey that will be unique and robust and different. It'll be difficult in the long run, but I think it'll be better. This is Doug Marola. I hope things are going well with you. Talk to you next time. And my site is www.thefreelanceteacher.com. Have a great afternoon.